It's now time to begin the hand sewing. So I already got this needle threaded here, and I already have it cut, but let's take a look at how I arrive at the length I actually cut it to. Take the ear in particular and just set it up beside the thread. 1, 2, 3, 4, and then a little bit of excess so you can have some leftover to trim off. So I want to show you this and how I actually tie the knot here. Usually, you just go in a bit like this and tie the knot. What I like to do is I like to go backwards and tie the knot for a particular reason so it doesn't actually start to unravel. And then pull it too to make sure it's tight. And usually that's what ends up coming loose if you decide to trim it. If you decide to trim off the excess there, that's usually what will end up coming loose. So let's tie it again. Depending on what you're doing, you may not have to tie it again. But for the tutorial, I want to show you how to tie it a separate time. What you actually want to do is have a separate knot all together. There we go. They're right next to each other, but there is still some distance between them, if you can see that. There's two little knots there. So we just cut off the excess at the end. Then when we begin our hand sewing, just go into the corner here, run it underneath the first knot, not the knot at the end. There, you'll see that. A little bit of excess there. You'll see that. The knot at the end. And what we're going to do is run it through this, between that little loop. There, see that? I would like to point something out here. You'll notice that I have been looping around through the ear and through the head, looping a little bit. Don't just loop it. At some point, get to where you will go under, coming from the head here. Stick it in there on the side and reinforce it. And then go back and loop again, so you don't get stuck inside the same loop. Also, remember to pull very tight. Don't break the thread, but you want to actually keep things pretty tight. That's usually what causes things to break, is the thread is actually too loose. So it wiggles and wallers and it gets worn out a little easier that way. So make sure when you hand sew to try to keep things pretty tight, at least in the final go. Now we're not going to finish it here. We are going to go back from where we started. And now for the finishing process. I'll tie this piece of thread up. If you can see that. First we gotta take our loop, make sure we don't have any windings. Have to unwind your thread if it happened to wind up in the process. So now we have two pieces of thread here sticking out. I'm going to take the one piece we cut off with the pin still in it, or the pin still over it. Run it through just a little bit on one side. Pull it tight and go either under or over the existing thread that doesn't have the pin on it once or no, twice. Always do it twice, the same direction, and then do it the opposite direction at the end. Okay, I hope you saw what I did. Now what we're going to do is thread the remaining thread that isn't in the pin through the pin. You may have to smooth it out. Alright, we have both threads through the pinhole, through the eye of the needle there. So what we're going to do now is hide these threads, sticking it into where we had sewn. And then sticking the pin out here. Pulling it to, cutting off the excess. And we pull it through, and the excess is pulled into the head, so you don't see it. Alright, that's it for sewing on an ear. And sewing on the horn is much the same way. And sewing on the head is similar. Just take your needle. What I do is I just stick it in a place. I'll wrap the thread around it, here again, 4 times to make sure I got enough thread, and then a little bit of excess after that. And what I actually do with the head, I don't go over it twice. I actually go over it 3 times, unlike the ears. The ears I typically go, I go from here to here and then back. In the head, I usually start from the back and just go all the way around. All the way around, of course. Then you try to pull it tight, then you go back around again, and then you can also go backwards. And along the way, while you are tightening up your head, but do remember to do a few back stitches here and there to make sure things stay secure. Otherwise, the thread may loosen along as you go. Even though you pull it tight, it will still loosen. So do back stitches, and I will try to illustrate that